Hello there.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Outer Rim Cantina. I'm your host Alan.
And I'm your co-host Ashley.
And this is your weekly fix of all things Star Wars. Alright, so this is not the episode that we intended on recording for this week, but we got blindsided by the Lucasfilm marketing for once. I know, it's very wild and wacky, and they actually gave us content for once. It was totally surprising, but not only did we get content, we got a full-blown trailer for Obi-Wan Kenobi. So everybody had pointed out a few weeks ago now that the Obi-Wan Kenobi Twitter account for the series was up and had been verified and all of that good stuff, so everybody was anxiously awaiting for the very first tweet from this account to, of course, be, "Hello there." I personally did not think that they would actually do it. I had very, 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 very little faith that they would do the hello there. But, in the end, they did it. We got the hello there. And right after that, we got the Empire magazine cover showing off Obi-Wan's mullet look for the series, which is objectively the best Obi-Wan look in the entire Star Wars franchise. The mullet is absolutely superior. And then, to top it all off, we got some still images from the series itself, showing off the characters, showing off a brand new planet, and then finally, we got the trailer, and the trailer killed both of us, actually. We are now dead. We are recording this podcast from the great beyond.
I mean, honestly, I was dead the minute I saw that magazine cover, and I was like, okay, a magazine cover and some promo pics. That I was cautiously optimistic that we'd actually get proof that the show did exist, and we did, and I was like, okay, cool. Then my unsuspecting self goes into class, and of course, during class, I'm on my phone because I'm horrible, and I see that a trailer dropped that I could not watch for the next hour while Alan was texting me screaming. It was an experience. Thank you, Lucasfilm, for dropping that on a random Wednesday afternoon.
Well, technically it wasn't. It wasn't just any random Wednesday afternoon. Apparently they dropped the trailer during their annual investor conference thing, which is why I had been wondering for a while why some people had been saying we were possibly going to get a trailer on March 9th. And apparently that was the reason, because of the conference thing where they usually tend to show off some promotional stuff for whatever latest big project Disney has going on, and in this case it happened to be the Obi-Wan trailer, which I was very pleased about, because personally, up until this trailer, I literally did not believe that the Obi-Wan series actually existed. I thought it was just a figment of my imagination, because Lucasfilm and Disney both have been refusing to acknowledge this series pretty much ever since it was announced.
And exist it does, because it hit us with a minute and around 40 seconds of pure Star Wars angst. And it was incredible.
All the angst. So much angst shoved into less than 2 minutes. It just makes me wonder if I will actually be able to survive the series itself or not. Because there are going to be 6, possibly 1 hour long each episodes of probably just pure angst, and I will probably be put in the hospital. I already know Ashley's going to be deceased, so that's a moot point, but I will be hanging on for dear life in life support, watching probably the finale of the series, and then I will die.
Don't worry, listeners, I'm getting my affairs in order. The moment the trailer started, it let us know exactly what we were in for. I gotta say, hearing Ewan's voice as Obi-Wan again for the first time in years and years was an experience. And he starts out by saying,
The fight is done. We lost.
what a way to start the trailer. We're about 10 years after the end of the Clone Wars, and the Jedi are gone, Obi-Wan's alone, Luke is a little kid, Leia is off somewhere on Alderaan, and we better see young Leia, or I will be throwing a fit. But despite that, it gives us a very real image of exactly what we're in for with this show, what this galaxy looks like, and it is a pretty dark one.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely a darker side to Star Wars that we haven't really gotten to see that often as of late. So, in a way, it's kind of refreshing. This whole series is basically just going to be a fever dream for prequel fans, and I'm personally all in for it. But actually, right before we started recording this episode, I was scrolling Instagram and I found this Mace Windu quote that pretty much fully sums up Obi-Wan's "the fight is over, we lost," because when we first heard that line, we were kind of, speculating, like, what could he mean, right? Why did Obi-Wan call it a fight and not a war? And when he says "we," does he mean the Jedi, or is he implying that they lost to the Sith and also the clones, because Obi-Wan didn't know about the inhibitor chips? So, right, for all he knows, Cody and all the rest of the clones just up and turned on the Jedi for really no particular reason at all. And the Mace Windu quote says, which I'm pretty sure is from Shatterpoint, says, "Jedi do not fight for peace. That's only a slogan and is as misleading as slogans always are. Jedi fight for civilization, because only civilization creates peace. We fight for justice, because justice is the fundamental bedrock of civilization. An unjust civilization is built upon sand. It does not long survive a storm." And lo and behold, what do we find in this series? We find Obi-Wan saying the fight is over, we lost. The fight meaning the fight for civilization, or also the Republic, and the fight for justice, or the Empire's subjugation of the formerly Confederate systems. And also Obi-Wan now living out his life on an unjust civilization, literally built upon sand, on Tatooine. I don't know how this quote manages to perfectly encapsulate the entire Obi-Wan series, considering it's from a book from 2003, but it does, and I find it hilarious that I just happened to run into this right before we started recording.
And I think it also brings to mind a lot of the people's complaints about Tatooine being so prominent in the recent projects. Tatooine is where Star Wars started. It has always represented the injustice of the galaxy. It was meant to show how terrible Luke's life was in the time of the Empire. It was meant to give us something to root for, because Luke's hope that Tatooine could be better, that a place as horrible as this could be better, drove him to be in the rebellion, to confront Darth Vader, and that was the central point of the original trilogy. And now we're back on Tatooine, we're seeing it before any of this happened, and it is representing just how dark the galaxy is now. That is why we're on Tatooine.
Yeah, I've said this in pretty much all of our discussions about the Book of Boba Fett, but I personally want them to go to any other planet besides Tatooine, literally anywhere else. But since they're so determined, apparently, to stay on Tatooine, I'm glad that they are making it actually interesting and meaningful. They're giving Tatooine a history, and they're giving the planet itself emotions and feelings that we haven't really gotten in a series or movie form up until now. Some of this stuff was kind of touched on in older expanded universe material, or Legends material now, or like video games, some of that stuff. But I'm glad that they're finally bringing more of the Tatooine history to the forefront of all of this, since, again, it seems like they're determined to kind of make all of these stories on Tatooine.
Although, ironically enough, we do have confirmation that Obi-Wan will be leaving Tatooine on the show, where nobody thought he would be leaving Tatooine. So, little ironic. I am definitely not complaining. But Obi-Wan's life on Tatooine looks honestly pretty interesting. It's a period we've never seen before of him. This is way before A New Hope. It looks like in the first couple frames of the trailer, he's working a part-time job, which is amazing, and I just think that's really funny. But it also shows how he has had to assimilate into the Tatooine culture and community. Although I do assume he is going to keep himself fairly distanced from people. It seemed like he lived a very lonely life, from what we know about that Obi-Wan. So I'm not really going to be surprised if he is that same lonely. And watching Luke, wow, I can't believe we got young Luke from afar. I just gotta say, the Mark Hamill... Alan, help me say his name.
Mark Hamill.
Shut up. I gotta say, the Mark Hamill de-aging has gotten really good with that young Luke.
Yeah, you're right. They de-aged him about 60 years. Absolutely incredible content. Thank you, Lucasfilm.
But it also looked a little too much like Jake Lloyd. It was Anakin. I thought I was seeing Anakin. I thought this was some sort of flashback. And then I realized, hang on, that little kid is Luke. And then I cried for like 2 minutes, as I do, before actually continuing the trailer.
Yes, obviously. I mean, I was crying in the first 5 seconds when Obi-Wan said the fight is over, we lost, so you were kind of doing better than me there. But also, something you pointed out that didn't really register with me, even though I've seen this trailer over like a dozen times at this point, is the goggles that little baby Luke was wearing. We're pretty sure that they are Anakin's old pod racing goggles that Shmi kept, which kind of makes sense considering in Attack of the Clones, right? Shmi was freed from being a slave. She got married, and she moved out of Mos Eisley to the moisture farm that Luke grows up in with Owen and Beru Lars. And so, yeah, it would make a whole lot of sense that they'd kind of just like have a bunch of her old junk in a back room somewhere, and Luke managed to find these dope-looking goggles, so now he climbs up on top of the hut and hits a little whip and nene up there while Obi-Wan spies on him with his, I'm pretty sure those are his Jedi issue little binocular things.
I just gotta say, I really did think it was Anakin, and I think that parallel was 100% on purpose.
Oh yeah, definitely. 100% I saw Jake Lloyd the instant that baby Luke showed up.
It makes me very sad and upset, but it also gives me faith that this show will make me sad. And I also think they're doing a really good job of honoring the prequels, and I think they're going to do a good job of honoring Alec Guinness in the original trilogy. I think they've already, from what I've seen, done a really good job of combining that. An example of that is the new music we heard in the trailer. The new music we heard, we knew that John Williams was coming back, that was confirmed, and we knew that he was at least going to craft a new theme for Obi-Wan, if not more music for the show. It was on very heavy security. I knew they wouldn't want that leaking. But it was definitely, I could hear the notes of the Force/Binary Sunset theme in the original trilogy. I actually can't remember what exactly they named it, because I know that Obi-Wan did not have his own theme named after him like every other character does. His theme was the kind of Star Wars Force theme. And you could definitely hear notes of it in the first bit of the trailer. And it was just beautiful. I mean, I'm very much looking forward to the soundtrack, more than some other things, actually. But then we get the very, very familiar music kicking in. And this is something I did not expect them to pull out of their hats this early in a trailer. But when that first note of Duel of the Fates hit, I knew they were not
Duel of the
around.
Fates, my love.
It was incredible. First of all, to hear that music again in a Star Wars project was astounding. I did not expect it. And it honestly like gave me a heart arrhythmia. I'm
You know,
not
it's
gonna
kind of funny
lie.
for like one of the most popular music tracks from the entire franchise. It doesn't really show up a whole lot. It is very rarely ever used, right? I mean, it's iconic for being in The Phantom Menace, but other than that, you rarely ever hear it. And if you do, it's usually only like a snippet of it. So for them to just come right out of the gate swinging with Duel of the Fates like 10 seconds into this trailer is absolutely amazing. And I legitimately got chills on my arm when I heard those first few notes. It was so good. And like I said, this series is definitely going to be a prequel fan's fever dream. And yeah, I'm just all here for it. Back to what you were saying a minute ago, Ashley, about the Alec Guinness stuff. Apparently, Ewan has already said that when he was preparing to do the role of Obi-Wan again for this series, he watched a lot of Alec Guinness's old movies before he did A New Hope, and then obviously watched A New Hope to go with it. So the whole idea was that he could channel some of that Alec Guinness-ness in this version of Obi-Wan that we're going to get in the series. So that is definitely going to be interesting.
And honestly, I could hear it when Obi-Wan said
Stay hidden.
before Duel of the Fates dropped, before the trailer completely changed gears. It was very Alec Guinness. It honestly felt like they had brought something in from the original trilogy and put that line in. And I'd like to know what exactly he's referencing. Is he telling Luke to stay hidden? Is he telling himself to stay hidden? Does he still have faith that there are Jedi out in the galaxy that need to stay hidden? And it's sad that he feels the need. He has to be secret when he used to be in a community and highly respected. He had friends. He had basically what the Jedi considered a family. And now, one of his lines in the trailer is stay hidden. It just speaks to the very new Obi-Wan that we are going to see. But then I feel the trailer really shifts gears to the more action part of things and brings in some of the coolest new characters that I'm very, very excited for, and some old ones from animation that I'm also incredibly excited for.
The Inquisitors. We love to see some Rebels love in other forms of Star Wars, so all of the Rebels haters can go cry in a corner, because Rebels is important and good, actually, and it still boggles my mind that people want to say that that series is not good, or not important, or irrelevant, because that is very obviously not the case, because we are getting the Grand Inquisitor, we're getting the Fifth Brother, we're getting probably some other Inquisitors that originally showed up in Rebels, as well as a brand new Inquisitor, the Third Sister, played by Moses Ingram. So she's, I guess, the main Inquisitor that is in charge of hunting down Obi-Wan in this series, so it'll be interesting to see her progression throughout the show. And me personally, I'm holding out hope that they do at least a little bit of Inquisitor redemption, where they don't die 5 seconds after they turn good all of a sudden, because that seems to be the theme that Lucasfilm has gone with over the last several years, with evil or dark side characters having these very, very powerful redemptions and then immediately dying. And even, right, the Inquisitors are guilty of this too, because in Fallen Order, Trilla, or the Second Sister, the main villain of that game, at the very end of it, she gets her own redemption, but then is immediately killed off by Vader, so it kind of makes the whole thing meaningless. So I'm hoping that they actually do something interesting this time around with the Third Sister, and don't just either make her completely evil the whole time, or if they give her a redemption, they don't just immediately kill her off, because I'm frankly tired of them doing that all the time.
Yeah, it really makes it seem not real, kind of wasted potential. But what's not wasted potential, whatever you think about his appearance, let's talk about the Grand Inquisitor.
The key to
hunting Jedi is patience. Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail. The Jedi Code is like an itch. He cannot help it.
What a quote, first of all. I mean, that is definitely up there in Star Wars villains quotes. We have not heard the Jedi spoken about in such frank terms in most recent projects that I can think of, because we've mostly been in the kind of Book of Boba Fett Mando era, where until Luke popped up at the end of Mando Season 2, there wasn't really any mention of Jedi, the people who this universe was created around, the people who used to be such a huge part of it. You know, they're just erased. But this is a time where the Jedi are still relevant. There are people alive who remember the Jedi. This is only 10 years after the war ended. And we have the Grand Inquisitor summing up their motivations, summing up what they think of the Jedi, and summing up exactly why Obi-Wan is the peak Jedi. He is what a Jedi is supposed to be, because he is compassionate, and he cares. And from what the trailer is implying, he is probably going to get people hurt or killed. I mean, we already know that Owen and Beru get got because of the Jedi, because of Obi-Wan. He couldn't protect them. They died for Luke.
And speaking of Owen Lars, I'm so glad that we're finally going to get to see the twin sun-sized balls this man has been carrying around on screen. Because over the last several years, in the comics especially, they've been fleshing out Owen Lars' character as someone who's gone from, just a background character, essentially, that a plot device that exists solely to further the story of Luke Skywalker, to a character that is fully aware of what's going on, fully aware of the stakes, and he will absolutely fistfight Darth Vader to protect Luke, and I'm 100% here for it. I cannot wait to see his little showdown with the third sister that they teased in the trailer, because it is going to be so good. The unfortunate part of this, however, is I feel like it's going to undermine their deaths in A New Hope a little bit, because, right, as I said earlier, in A New Hope, right, they died. Yeah, it was sad, but it was sad because Owen and Beru existed for Luke. Now it's going to be sad for a whole different reason.
Yeah, it's definitely not, undermining. It is giving their deaths a new meaning, a new depth. These are people who lived in the galaxy, who fought in the galaxy, and who had compassion and love. And the show is going to make me love them, and then I'm going to watch A New Hope, and I am going to have a mental breakdown because of it. It's that inevitability of knowing where the story is going to go. And the last time we really experienced this was in Revenge of the Sith. We all knew Anakin was going to turn into Darth Vader. Everybody knew that. And yet, the story, the Clone Wars series, it made you hope for something different. But we knew where it was going. And in Kenobi, no matter what kind of ending this has, we know where it's going. Owen and Beru have to die. Luke has to grow up and bring Anakin back to the light. That's just how it has to go. So that inevitability of knowing this about Owen and Beru is going to make me love them more, but it is going to make it harder getting to know them as characters, knowing exactly what's going to happen to them.
And really, I think this whole series is going to be a character study on the Jedi as a whole that we've never really gotten before, because we've only seen bits and pieces and small glimpses into the history of the Jedi, but we've never really taken a deep dive into what a Jedi is, what it means to be a Jedi, and I think this series is going to do a good job of explaining all of that, because just the few quotes that we got from this trailer, right, they all kind of tie back into stuff we've heard before, like Anakin in Attack of the Clones saying compassion, which I would define as unconditional love, is essential to a Jedi's life. And right, the Grand Inquisitor talks about the Jedi's compassion being one of their weaknesses and what makes it easier to hunt them. And then you also have Maul saying in the Clone Wars, in a galaxy at war, there is only one way to get the attention of a Jedi, the slaughter of the innocent, mercilessly and without compromise. And it plays into the Jedi having compassion, having love for all life in the galaxy. And the Inquisitors know this because all of the Inquisitors are former Jedi themselves. So they are the perfect people to hunt the remaining Jedi, because they know exactly how to get under their skin, how exactly to get them out of hiding and out into the open, where the end goal is essentially to prove that the Jedi's whole mantra is wrong and that they're weak, which we know to not be the case.
Honestly, the Inquisitors aren't really wrong either. The Jedi got into the Clone Wars. They started this war because they fight for civilization. They want peace. They want justice. Their compassion led them to get into the war because they saw it as the best way to help people. And us, as the audience, know it was all just orchestrated. But Palpatine knew this about the Jedi. He knew how to use their compassion to draw them into this, and they lost. And the Inquisitors think that because they lost then, they are going to lose again. But we know that Luke's compassion is what saves the galaxy in the end. It does come full circle eventually. But in this era, at this point in Obi-Wan's story, the Inquisitors might be a little right. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the clash between the Inquisitors and the one remaining Jedi. Perhaps another Jedi will show up. We don't know. We know who's alive in that era. We don't know any kind of cameos that'll show up, but I am really looking forward to the clash between characters. Not only the cool action scenes, but the ideals that are being presented, the differing perspectives on how to interpret the Jedi Code, on what's moral, what's ethical.
And speaking of the Inquisitors, the sheer amount of Inquisitor content that we're going to get in this series, absolutely incredible. And not only that, but the amount of references to other material is going to be incredible too. We already kind of know, and Lucasfilm has already pretty much made this clear, that this series is gonna have a lot of fan service in it, and that was really evident in the trailer itself, right? If you've played Fallen Order, you got to see Fortress Inquisitorius and the planet Nur, and all of the meeting chambers and a bunch of the rooms that you get to explore in that game as Cal Kestis. And going back to what Ashley said a minute ago about cameos, it's entirely possible that we might get to see Cal show up at some point in this series, because he has a lot of history with the Inquisitors, and we have absolutely no idea at this point what the sequel game to Fallen Order is going to include in it. So Cal's story is essentially a blank slate and a fully open book. So now, obviously, since we're talking about the Inquisitors, we have to talk about the Grand Inquisitor. We just have to. Now let me start this off by saying that yes, I am just as upset as a lot of other people are that they did not cast Jason Isaacs as the Grand Inquisitor. Jason Isaacs, for those of you who don't know, he was the actor who voiced the Grand Inquisitor in Star Wars Rebels, and he has said in the past that he would like to play the role in a live-action capacity. Now, obviously, there's a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff that probably went down. I like to think that they at least asked him about the role, and maybe it was just a scheduling thing or something. But yeah, it's sad that we don't get Jason Isaacs. However, I'm glad they included the Grand Inquisitor content that they did in the trailer, because it gives us a sense of what Rupert Friend can do as the Grand Inquisitor in the series. And just going off of his line delivery alone, he's going to be fantastic. There's no doubt about that. The content itself and the Grand Inquisitor's characterization, I think, is going to be spot on in this series. That's not something that we have to worry about. and that's not something a lot of people are complaining about. What a lot of people, myself included, have such an issue with is his actual physical appearance in the show, because it is just terrible. It is horrible. It is straight up ugly. I find it hard to believe that somebody actually approved this look as the final, yes, we're gonna go with this in the series. It is that bad. Now, this isn't the first time people have had problems with them bringing alien characters from stylized cartoons into live action, right? People complained about Cad Bane's appearance in the Book of Boba Fett. People complained about Ahsoka's appearance in The Mandalorian. Both of those, I personally could deal with and understand. I could, in a way, forgive and accept the reasons that they did the looks that they did. In Ahsoka's case, they made the Leku shorter so that she would be able to move around and have a lot more action scenes without it just looking really weird with the fake Leku just kind of flopping all over the place. And with Cad Bane, you kind of have his whole like head shape in the Clone Wars is totally unrealistic, even to what the background like Duros aliens that we've seen before in the original trilogy looked like. And in the case of the Duros, it's entirely possible that they just have a wide variety of facial structures and appearances in their species, because as we know, like from Legends, not all Duros are blue. There's green Duros, there's pink Duros, there's dark blue, light blue, whatever. There's all different shades of this species, so it would make sense that there would be all different kinds of head shapes and all of that stuff. So as far as the Cad Bane thing goes, that is what it is. It didn't really bother me, and it didn't really bother a whole lot of people. But with the Grand Inquisitor, it's been a while since I've seen so many people just collectively shit on this one thing. And granted, it's like the only thing people actually have a problem with from this trailer, which does make it, which is a good thing for the series itself going into it. But the Grand Inquisitor's appearance is just something that sticks out so much. And it's not even just that, like, they went and made him ugly. It's the fact that Lucasfilm seems so determined to not use CGI to help create these character appearances that they've reached the point where it's just offensive. It really is. Because while you have them refusing to use even a little bit of CGI to make a few touch-ups to these characters, like make the Grand Inquisitor's head a little bit taller, make his chin a little bit slimmer. That's just minor details that they could essentially, for them, very easily add, just like they could very easily add some fake CGI long Leku to Ahsoka, and nobody would bat an eye about it. Nobody would care. But while they refuse to use CGI for that, they go and they clone Mark Hamill. They make an entire carbon copy of this man, like 40 years younger. They make an emotionless robot version of Mark Hamill, even down to his voice. And that's a good thing somehow. It doesn't make any sense why they're so against using CGI in an actually useful way, while they refuse to recast Mark Hamill when Sebastian Stan literally exists. This bothers me so much, and it bothers so many other people, and yes, it is a problem, and no, I don't think it can just be ignored like we did for Cad Bane, or like we did for Ahsoka. Like, this is an actual issue, and they're reaching the point where I find it hard to believe there will be any going back for them after this, or any kind of explaining this away.
It's just, there is really no great excuse, because the rest of the trailer, the show, looks absolutely cinema quality. It's honestly probably better made and looks better than some of the Marvel Disney Plus shows that we've seen. It looks incredible. So the fact that this one little thing so easily fixable, it irks.
Big
It irks
irk
both
energy.
of us. And you can tell that Alan
Incredibly
is irked.
so.
That is obvious. But me, personally, I am hopeful that maybe it was just a little unfinished in the trailer and they're going to do a little CGI touch-ups before the show actually drops. And that's me being optimistic and delusional, but it's better than being irked.
Very true. You're doing better than me. And I can understand the argument of, like, yeah, you know, when you see these aliens in the background of other Star Wars media, and then you have these iconic characters of the same species being brought to the forefront of these new stories, where the argument on Lucasfilm's side of things is that the amount of movement and the visibility in those old costumes is terrible. There's a reason why when you see a whole bunch of aliens in the background of shots in A New Hope or The Phantom Menace or whatever, that it's always an alien and a human walking side by side, is because the person in that alien costume and all those prosthetics, they either can't move, can't see, or both. So there's a very legitimate reason why they can't just carbon copy these character costumes and prosthetics from, say, Revenge of the Sith, for the Utapau people, for the Grand Inquisitor. Like, those prosthetics that they used for those costumes in that film, they did not allow for a whole lot of movement. Like, those characters, they had very, very limited movement. They had very limited speaking lines. You really kind of just saw them standing there looking cool. And in the Grand Inquisitor's case, where you actually want him moving around, being at the forefront, being straight in front of the camera, being menacing and doing stunts and all of that, yeah, it's a bit difficult. But something that, in Lucasfilm's terms and ILM's terms, could easily be corrected with even just the slightest amount of CGI.
Yeah, we have the technology, and that technology is shining a lot in this trailer. The new planet, something that I personally did not think we were going to get, looks really cool. I mean, I did think it was Coruscant at first.
You think every city thing is
but
Coruscant.
Looking close, it looks like...
No, it doesn't.
I'm sorry.
It does not look like Coruscant. It looks like Space Hong Kong.
At first glance, when I was sobbing my eyes out, it looked like Coruscant. Is that a better clarification?
No, it's not, because you're still wrong.
Okay. Looking at it when I had calmed down, it's actually really cool, really unique looking. I looked up if Daiyu means anything. It's just a name. I don't think the name was on purpose. There's nothing it really alludes to when I looked up the meaning. But I am really excited because it seems like we're actually going to get a pretty good amount of content on that planet. Why Obi-Wan's there, I have no idea. But, I mean, a rooftop chase scene, that's everything I've ever wanted for Obi-Wan, and I think
the
he
rooftop
deserves it.
blaster battle where he gets to be uncivilized. God, he better comment on him using a blaster at some point. Come on. The series is all about fan service. They have to do it. But in terms of the new planet, I am absolutely ecstatic that we are getting a new planet, because when this series was announced, I really was not looking forward to it. A, because, you know, he's going to be on Tatooine the whole time. B, because I thought, well, how much interesting stuff could Obi-Wan really be doing while he's just camping out in the desert watching Luke grow up? And C, because, well, right, for this story, for it to make sense, wouldn't Obi-Wan have to stay on Tatooine the entire time? And obviously, Deborah Chow said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to send Obi-Wan to Space Hong Kong. And I absolutely love this woman for explaining this planet literally in those terms. She called it Hong Kong, essentially. That's what they themed this planet out of. And apparently the story behind that is Deborah Chow's dad really loved the old kung fu movies and stuff that took place in Hong Kong, and really loved the aesthetic of the city and all of that stuff. So she wanted to incorporate some of that into her own series as a kind of callback or appreciation for her father, which I think is very special. And I love Deborah Cho even more now. I loved her in her very first debut episode of The Mandalorian, and I'm going to love her even more when this series finally comes out.
And I think it's also really fitting, considering that Star Wars is inspired by a bunch of old samurai movies that George Lucas really used to like. I mean, the lightsabers are basically katanas. So I'm just really excited to get some actual serious new content somewhere we haven't seen before. We have no idea what's going to happen. And from what the trailer looked like, Obi-Wan's going to be getting, he's going to be pretty busy. And I will bring up, I've seen some people concerned that they're going to retcon the original trilogy. And while, yes, Star Wars in recent times in a certain trilogy has had issues with retconning, I think that they will be very careful to not retcon. And I mean, think back to the original trilogy. The dialogue was all pretty vague. I don't think the prequels would have been able to be pulled off like they were if some of the dialogue was not as vague and implying history more than straight out telling history than they were. And I think it was brilliant of George Lucas, personally. So I don't think people really have to worry. It was never said that Obi-Wan stayed on Tatooine, and it was never said that he had not encountered Vader before. So I wouldn't be concerned if they do end up retconning. I will be very surprised. I'm just enthusiastic to see what they do with this blank slate in Obi-Wan's life, because it really is a blank slate. We don't know.
I think people forget that the line in A New Hope is literally, "When I left you, I was but a learner, now I am the master." That is the absolute most vague piece of dialogue I have ever heard in my entire life. And Obi-Wan meeting Vader and fighting him before A New Hope in no way, shape, or form retcons Obi-Wan's sacrifice for Luke in the original film. That's just not, it's not how it works. People need to calm down. This whole idea of another showdown when Anakin has fully become Darth Vader is another reason why I changed my tune about the Kenobi series. It's another reason why I'm so excited for this show now versus when it was announced and I was kind of like, well, whatever. But I'm 100% for a Kenobi x Vader fight, and yes, I will die on this hill.
And here's the thing. I already know that this show is going to pay serious homage to the original trilogy, because the original trilogy established the central theme of Star Wars, and this is something we've touched on before because it does carry through every single project. You cannot have a Star Wars project without its central theme being hope. And that's why certain things have not hit as great than others. A lot of times just people forget this central theme of Star Wars. But the Kenobi trailer, the little text that pops up, between darkness and defeat, hope survives. If that isn't the original trilogy summed up in a sentence, I must be watching the wrong Star Wars.
Also, the very nice and crisp edit of when the Hope Survives card shows up, it fades out to Obi-Wan's face. Very nice, very spicy.
Obi-Wan is the last Jedi. He is hope. And he is hope before Luke becomes that. Because it's not like the light fully died in the galaxy after Revenge of the Sith. It didn't. We know it didn't. We know that Jedi like Kanan and Cal survived. We know that there were other good people during that time. We saw it in Rebels, and we're going to see it in Kenobi. And that is just something that's central to Star Wars as a story. And personally, I think that's why Star Wars has survived this long. I mean, it's been decades. There's not that many stories that last that long. There has to be something about this, something that makes it special, something that makes it stand out, that so many people around the world relate to it. It strikes them where it hurts, and it gets to you in a way that very few stories do. And it's because of this central theme of hope. Every movie ends hopefully. There's never, or very rarely, an all is lost moment in Star Wars. Because that's just not how it works. Even at the end of Revenge of the Sith, it could have ended on Darth Vader's face. It could have ended with Anakin realizing that he killed Padme and presumably his kid/kids. But it didn't. It ended on Tatooine, the place of hope, the place of twin suns, of light. Attack of the Clones could have ended with the war. We touched on this in our Attack of the Clones episode. It didn't. It ended with Anakin and Padme on Naboo. It was false hope, but it was still hope. And A New Hope, well, I think it's pretty redundant to say, but that movie ended pretty hopefully. That is just central to Star Wars. And stories these days, this grim, dark fiction, this Game of Thrones, everybody dies and you're just supposed to be sad about it, that's just a story. It doesn't hit people deeper. It doesn't make you feel. It's just an author looking at you, slapping you in the face and be like, hey, do you like that? And you're like, well, no, not really. And they're like, oh, well, you're supposed to because the world is dark and depressing. Yes, the world is dark and depressing, but we turn to fiction because we want to have hope that it could be better. And I think the Kenobi show is really going to embody that, just like the original trilogy of Star Wars did so many years ago.
And I think that is about as good a place as any to end off this episode about our thoughts and reaction to the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer. Both of us will be anxiously awaiting the series premiere on May 25th so that it can then kill us both. We can both be in the hospital on life support for about 6 weeks until we get to see the finale and then finally pass away and become Force ghosts. And at that point, this will turn into the Outer Rim Ghost Podcast, so look forward to that. But that is all the time we've got for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Monday with more exciting news, analysis, and theories. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want even more Outer Rim Cantina content, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter at Outer Rim Can, and Instagram at Outer Rim Cantina. If you liked what you heard and want to support us even more, consider tipping us. 100% of tips go directly into creating more weekly content like this. You can also subscribe to our Patreon, where we have exclusive videos not seen on YouTube, extended podcast episodes, subscriber Q&As, and we even take topic requests for future YouTube videos or podcast episodes. That's all the time we have for this week. As always, may the Force be with you.